Michael, is this a business deal or is it actually a peace deal?
Well, I can tell you how this went down. It basically began with the Qataris, who Jared is close to, and understand the context of this. That at this point in the world, the greatest pool of free cash flow is in the Persian Gulf. Everybody is in the Persian Gulf. Are you raising money? You go to the Persian Gulf. Are you starting a business? You go to the Persian Gulf. Put the emphasis on following the money.
So, Michael.
Joanna.
We're going inside Trump's head to figure out what is being triggered in there after the news that he didn't win the Nobel Peace Prize.
And what we're going to get to inside Trump's head is his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who is one of the elements of Trump's political identity and who is, in some sense, always in Trump's head.
Interesting. The son-in-law always in the father-in-law's head, and who might, along with your friend, Steve Witkoff, who you have been withering about. It's possible that Jared and Steve Witkoff, two real estate dudes from Manhattan, might end up getting next year's Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, actually, Jared is from New Jersey, which figures into this. But let's go back to Trump being snubbed for the Peace Prize, which is elemental to the story, to the unfolding story in the Middle East right now. And not only has Trump been snubbed by the Peace Prize committee, he's been rebuked. The fact that the Nobel Peace Prize has gone to Maria Machado is giving it to someone who really represents the absolute polar opposite of Donald Trump. I mean, she is. I think the language that the Peace Prize committee used is that she represents the flame of democracy amid a world of growing darkness, and that would pointedly be Donald Trump is the darkness, and you know, I mean, it's kind of extraordinary that she is this campaigner for democracy in Venezuela might in any world have been considered up against Donald Trump, the man who has defied his own courts, sent troops into his own cities, undermined his own free elections.
And in fact, been blowing up boats from Venezuela.
Indeed. So in what world could it have been that Donald Trump believed that he actually was destined to get the Nobel Peace Prize? Now, and let's step back. I mean, there was on his part an absolute belief that he would get the Nobel Peace Prize. He was, as recently as somewhat more than 24 hours ago, telling people that he was a lock on the Nobel Peace Prize.
He was telling people that less than 24 hours ago?
Indeed he was. And I think in his world, in his reality, this made perfect sense. It actually made perfect sense to lots and lots of people. He had brought a peace, or at least a moment of peace, and maybe a meaningful moment of peace, to an intractable situation, the situation between Israel and Gaza, which is the point at which I think we should segue into Donald Trump's head via Jared Kushner.
I totally think we should, but I will say that this morning, we're recording this on Friday afternoon before Donald Trump gives another press conference at 5 o'clock, so I should just point that out. But he woke up this morning and promptly started reposting all sorts of posts that other people had put out saying Donald Trump was a man of peace, as in fact MSNBC is reporting that they're about to charge John Bolton, his former national security advisor, and try and get him into trouble alongside Letitia James, alongside, who's the other person they're charging? Oh, James Comey, former head of the FBI. So
yes. So on top of everything else, this is in flying exactly in the face of democracy, for which Maria Rashada got this award. He's jailing his opponents, or trying to.
Exactly. All right. So inside Trump's head, we are stomping around with our galoshes, and we run into none other than Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner, who was sat right next to, on Bibi Netanyahu's left, at the when Bibi Netanyahu was addressing the Israeli parliament, and who I think many people thought had disappeared, because in effect he has disappeared in that he was very present during Trump 1, and then made it very clear he wasn't going to be part of Trump 2. So can you take us back?
Yeah, I can, because I know Jared and have spent some amount of time with him, and I actually first met Jared on the campaign trail, and
I thought you were going to tell me you knew Jared when he purchased the New York Observer, which was that pink, very funny newspaper that was part of New York Life at one point, certainly when I arrived. And Peter Kaplan was his mischievous editor. I
didn't know him. I mean, he was just the kind of, he was not a person you would have any interest in getting to know at that time. I mean, he was a lightweight, just a rich guy who had way overpaid for this this newspaper. I think, as I recall, he bought it for $11 million, which was approximately $11 million more than it was worth. I knew the editor of the paper at that time, a man by the name of Peter Kaplan, and so the only thing I knew about Jared Kushner was what Peter said, and Peter was spread it all over town that he was one of the great lightweights, Jared Kushner of all time.
Well, he's not as lightweight now. I mean, perhaps hard to predict what would have happened to him.
I think that's one of the interesting developments. But Jared, who married Ivanka, and then had the job in the campaign, the kind of interesting job of the family monitor of Donald Trump. I mean, the family believed, Donald Trump was running for president. This was ridiculous. And they had, as best they could, to protect the family brand.
And wasn't he also thought of as the digital genius? That this was 2016, it was the sort of peak Facebook moment for campaigns, and Jared was someone who understood this in a way that other people around Donald Trump and Donald Trump didn't quite understand. The power
I'm not sure that was true, and that certainly was not true at the point in the campaign when nobody thought that this was a real campaign. I mean, this was just a publicity exercise on Donald Trump's part, and the family was just trying to somewhat limit the embarrassing lengths that he would go to attract publicity.
Right. Oh goodness.
So,
goodness.
And then later, when they actually preposterously and certainly unexpectedly got the nomination. And yes, Jared was one of the people who were seemed to have some, or at least claimed to have some expertise, or knew who to call to mount a hurried digital operation. Now, Steve Bannon was involved in the campaign, and Steve Bannon at that time would have said that Jared knew nothing about anything. But in fact, what Jared was doing was assembling a list that, curiously, in this a political list, which would be very valuable, in which Jared himself would come to have an ownership stake in, which it leads to another theme of the Trump political.
Hold on a minute. What do you mean by list? A list of what?
Politics is founded on. Basically, politics is founded on having a list. Your strength as a politician is about the strength of your list.
Do you mean list of voters, or?
Yeah, list of
voters. Okay.
List of voters, list of people who are guaranteed to support you, likely to support you, all of those things. So you're looking to make a reach out efficient. One of the things you don't want to do is campaign to people who are never going to support you, for instance. So at any rate, they developed this list, and the list actually becomes incredibly valuable, not only to Trump, but commercially valuable. Think of, all the money they've made selling those hats, just as a for instance. And this is extend this theme. Jared really represents the idea that governing should work for the people who are doing the governing as well as the governed. So all along that theme of Trump trying to profit from the presidency, of the people around Trump trying to profit from the presidency, in very not just direct ways, but without much pretense otherwise. And Jared came to represent this. What would be the word? Certainly, this impulse, this theme of the presidents, of the Trump years, the grift,
or the opportunism. Because what's so fascinating about looking at this deal and then understanding what Jared has been doing since he left after Trump won, is just this sense of, and he keeps talking about him and Steve Witkoff being deal guys. That it's all very well having diplomats.
That came out of a New York Times story today, and it's always very interesting. Jared who was one of the great leakers in the first administration, has turned himself into a kind of favorite of the press, because he's. Especially the New York Times seems always to have a soft spot for Jared Kushner.
Well, it's hard not to have a soft spot for the son-in-law of Donald Trump. But I'm fascinated by the way they present themselves, or Steve Witkoff and Jared present themselves as deal guys, sort of saying, the previous lot have tried to do this, which is a totally fair point. Why would we try and pursue peace in the Middle East using the traditional diplomatic channels? Because that hasn't worked. We are deal guys. We get to yes first, and then we think about all the details after.
I would look at this. Yes, you can say deal guys. You can use that language, or you could say these are grifters.
Well, I'm using their language, right?
I know that. But even to understand, what deal guys and grifters have in common is following the money, and Jared recognizes, and I think in a way that a lot of traditional diplomats. And political figures might not, that everything in the region is dictated by money. The Saudis, what is their motivation in the end? Money. The Qataris, what's their motivation? Money. The Emiratis, what's their motivation? Money. Not the Palestinians. That is not their motivation. Antipathy to Israel, that is not their motivation. Their motivation is money. Show me the money. And Jared has been incredibly good at speaking exactly to that. And on top of that, their idea of the money and who has the money and how you exchange the money is always a family thing. They are more comfortable dealing with families because that's what they're used to and that's what they deal with their own families than they are in a let's call it just a simple free market world.
Oh, that's fascinating to think about the families and the tribes of the Middle East, and then the Kushner tribe and the Trump tribe. And of course, Jared's father, Charles Kushner, got a pardon from Donald Trump and is now the US ambassador to Paris.
Yeah,
I mean, when Jared was growing up, he was going to see his father in jail at the weekends.
Right. And remember, so his father went to jail for setting up I think his brother-in-law with a prostitute, and then he went to jail, and at that point, actually, then Jared took over the business as a young man.
And Jared has a brother called Josh Kushner, also married to a high-profile model in his case. I mean, the two Kushner brothers are pretty fascinating, both good-looking, both charming. People love to be around them. They have the sort of they seem to have shared their father's
I would disagree with that. I mean, Josh, I think some people like to be around. Nobody likes to be around Jared.
Okay, go on.
Well, he's first thing, he has no social presence at all.
You described him in your book. I came across this afternoon. You described him in your book, Too Famous, as a quivering filament, which reminded me of a filament in a light bulb that's slightly. You're not quite sure if it's on or off. It's flickering.
Yeah, no. And actually, the Times, one long interview I did with him, his hand shook through the whole interview. He's cold, he's haughty, he's arrogant, he's entitled, he's unpleasant he's personally unpleasant. You would not want to be with him, and he was certainly within the first Trump White House among the more disliked, or if you will, even hated figures. Having said that, you also have to note that he's perhaps the only true survivor of the first Trump White House.
Well, and he had a couple of near misses, didn't he? I mean, he certainly had to testify a couple of times.
Oh, no. I think it became for him a kind of risk reward situation. He recognized that being in the White House could be monetized, and he has monetized it. When he got out of the White House, he's monetized this at a level we have never before seen from anyone in the White House, but also recognizing a high level of risk. Within the White House, they basically say he can Bigfoot anyone. If Jared chooses to step in, move aside. And in fact, and very important to note that Susie Wiles, who is the chief of staff, was put into that job directly and personally by Jared Kushner.
So what is Jared's relationship with his father-in-law now?
They've gone through some not good periods, including after the 2020 defeat, when Trump returned to Mar-a-Lago. He had assumed that Jared would go to Mar-a-Lago with him and would continue as his aide and consigliere and in effect Trump's brain. But Jared very much did not want to do that. First thing, he wanted to get on with the business of making money, and he wanted to get out from under the thumb of his father-in-law, and which I think I don't think Jared has had any illusions about what his father-in-law was.
Indeed, Jared's father was a Democrat, and he was assumed to be a Democrat. And I'm sure Andy Vanker wanted to put January the 6th as far in the rearview mirror as they possibly could.
In the White House, in the first White House, they used to say, when the going gets tough, Jared is nowhere to be found. And I think that was certainly true after with the claims of Trump's claims of election fraud, and then January 6th. They were not there. They were like, okay, get us out of here. And in fact, they did not go to Mar-a-Lago. They moved to Miami, which is enough of a distance that they weren't going to be called upon on a daily basis, certainly. And Jared wanted to, start he immediately, or in short order, recruited a couple of $1 billion from the Saudis and put himself into business, which then became another issue in his relationship with his father-in-law. Jared got the money and Trump did not.
That's so fascinating. So, of course, he sets up affinity parties. He sets up Affinity Partners, which is his investment company, in January 2021. He's listed at the moment as the only owner of it. As you say, he picks up $2 billion from the Saudis, from the Sovereign Wealth Fund, and I think another $1 billion of other investors. And he's been investing in Israeli companies, American companies in Africa.
Right, and this has been a kind of on a parallel track here. Trump has himself been very attuned to keeping up with the Kushners, so to speak. And,
so fascinating. So, Michael, is this a business deal, or is it actually a peace deal?
Well, I can tell you what I hear, how this went down, and it basically began with the Qataris, who Jared is close to, and understand the context of this. That at this point in the world, the greatest pool of free cash flow is in the Persian Gulf. Everybody is in the Persian Gulf. Are you raising money? You go to the Persian Gulf. Are you starting a business? You go to the Persian Gulf.
And it also coincides with MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, modernizing Saudi Arabia. Right, this might not have happened 10 years ago, but here you have a young crown prince who is determined to modernize his country. I was going to say company, but country.
Let's not even. Yes, but again, put the emphasis on following the money. Everybody is money hungry. MBS is money hungry. MBZ is money hungry. The Qataris are money hungry. It's what it all is. And the families that run these countries. And remember, in each instance, there are so many family members that they really actually do need a lot of money. So
it begins with the Qataris.
So the Qataris basically say, and I don't know the context in which they say, but they say, we will come down hard on Hamas. And remember, Israel attacked the Hamas negotiators, the Hamas, essentially the top Hamas leadership in Qatar. So they were completely freaked out about this. And I think they realized we got to. This is not in our interest. So it's essentially, we will come down hard on Hamas, they say to Donald Trump's son-in-law, if the president of the United States will come down hard on Bibi Netanyahu. And so that has now Trump has not come down hard on Bibi for the past, since he's been in office. Essentially, Bibi has had a free rein to continue this awful carnage, with Trump at best looking the other way. So suddenly, though, he comes down hard on Bibi. And he comes down hard on Bibi, not least of all, and Jared is good at this. He knows how to play his father-in-law. He comes down hard on Bibi in this 11th hour bid to win the Nobel Peace Prize.
So that really was a driving force behind this?
Completely. Trump is, it's always very important to get inside Trump's head and realize that what he wants is usually very specific. He wants something for himself.
So he doesn't want peace. He wants a peace prize.
Exactly.
Well, I shouldn't be laughing because there's so much at stake, but it's so odd. It's just so odd.
Or it's not odd. It's very clear. Trump is very readable. Trump is a very simple machine. What does he want? And not want in a global sense. What does he want in a specific sense? And the Nobel Peace Prize has been an obsession. I mean, he will not feel complete until he gets the Nobel Peace Prize. How can he get the Nobel Peace Prize? Well, by bringing peace to the Middle East, by solving the Gaza situation. Now, of course, he could have done that any time since last January when he became the president of the United States. But he does it now because for a very specific goal. The Nobel Peace Prize, which he did not get. The world has some justice in it, we should note.
Well, he might, and then he might go through the humiliation of watching his son-in-law and his former golfing buddy, Steve Witkoff, pick it up next year.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have some faith. I mean, the Nobel Peace Prize has been awarded to some actually quite horrible people in the past. But I think this is this is an exercise, and this is what we do here in trying to understand what is in Trump's head, and the idea, and it seemed weird to me that actually at this point in time, for no apparent reason, peace was in Trump's head, but it makes perfect sense that the Peace Prize was in Trump's head, and that his son-in-law, his quite clever, at least when it comes to his son-in-law, knew this and basically went to him and said, "You can get the Peace Prize if you just come down hard on Bibi and force a deal."
And then what's going on in Jared's head is contracts, deals, money.
Yeah, Jared. Jared's business is basically based in that part of the world.
And is and Michael, is there any way that actually Jared is doing this because he believes in peace? Because he really craves peace in the Middle East. He tried to get it during the first.
I think he craves.
He was part of the Abraham Accords, which did make a difference in the region.
He craves. He craves influence in the Middle East. He craves business opportunities in the Middle East. He craves, further, deeper relationships with the powerful people in the Middle East, all of which is helped by peace. So peace becomes a byproduct of business. Is that good? Is that bad?
Well, it's better than not having peace, right? It's better than what has been going on.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah, but we should not have illusions about this. He has acted out of his own self-interest, and is that bad?
Well, perhaps his self-interest is also a bigger interest. Two things can exist at the same time. So he has business interests in bringing peace, but we all have interest in peace in the Middle East.
Yeah, no. I mean, this is on that hand. This is a positive development. I mean, obviously, it's a positive development. It will enable Jared, however, to accomplish things that we would think are highly less than positive. I mean, he will grease his own pocket. I mean, this is I mean, what we have in the broader context is peace, but peace brought to us by for reasons that we don't understand, by powers that we can't control, and in a world that is going to make people, individuals, vastly richer because of this. And then again, you come, well, is that bad? Would you rather have peace? Would you rather have an equitable world or peace? And I think for the moment, people would certainly choose peace.
Blessed are the deal makers. Okay, Michael, we will be watching the president this weekend as he takes a victory lap around the Middle East with his son-in-law, presumably. Have you been in the room with the two of them together? Because I'm struck by their physical differences. Yeah,
I have. No, I was knocked over by it, and this was the first time on the campaign. It was in Trump's house in Beverly Hills, and we were all sitting together, and Trump is this. I think people don't realize what a dominating physical presence he is. Scary. I mean, you literally step back from him, and he moves in a hulking way. And he is large. This isn't just a 6'2" or 3" man. This is an exceptionally large, I would guess, 300-pound plus 6'2" man. And Jared is a 98-pound weakling. In the classic sense. I mean, he's reed thin without, he's fairly tall, not as tall as his father-in-law, but reed thin, and he kind of pulls himself together. Retreats. You can see him physically retreat in against the presence of his father-in-law.
I've seen him with Ivanka where she's the center of attention and he almost becomes a negative space. He sort of withdraws into himself, was my observation. Perhaps he does that with his father-in-law too.
Yeah, no, with other people too. I mean, I was once with Steve Bannon in the White House and we were talking and Jared clearly wondering what was going on and what we were talking about, and he kind of sort of shimmied into the room and sort of waited for an invitation to join the conversation, which Bannon did not give him. So he was left there awkwardly standing. And then finally, he just decided to seize the day, and he sat down. And then Bannon completely ignored him to the point where he obviously he didn't know what he was doing there and probably had even stopped listening. And at that point, Bannon engaged him. Do you think that's true, Jared? Did you get that? What's your feeling, Jared? I mean, just that kind of schoolboy caught by the teacher.
But
it was a pleasant bunch in that White House.
Oh, I was going to say, but turns out that Jared had much more staying power than Steve Bannon. It was Steve Bannon who ended up going to jail.
He is the winner out of that White House, and he understood all of the reasons not to go back into the White House. So in that business equation of opportunity versus risk, and which is the ultimate business equation. And then the question is how to maximize opportunity and minimize risk. He saw, well, I should not go into the White House. I can still have considerable power outside of the White House, really as much power as he wants to have, and to really limit the risks he would have to take, and then to maximize the money he is going to get.
Right. Well, fascinating to see what falls out over the weekend. We haven't yet gotten around to talking about Melania's remarkable press conference today, where it turned out she's been talking to President Putin about returning Ukrainian children. We're going to talk more about Melania and why she's suddenly on the scene on Tuesday. And until then, well, we'll be keeping close watch on whatever comes out of the White House. Michael, have a good weekend. Do you want to remind people to subscribe to our podcast?
Please subscribe to the podcast. I don't exactly know how to do that, but
well, you just press the button that says subscribe.
That's it.
You press the button that says subscribe.
Please. There's a button that says subscribe, and all you have to do is press it.
And you can leave reviews for us on Apple and Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Comments on YouTube, please.
Are they reviewing us or commenting, entering into a discussion with us? Two different things.
Interesting. On Apple and Spotify, well, on Spotify you can leave comments. On Apple, I think you review us. And on YouTube, you can enter into what are really frequently extremely interesting conversations that people join in, all sorts of threads of conversations.
How are our reviews on Apple?
I don't know. I haven't looked, actually. I will go on this weekend and look. I'm a bit more familiar with YouTube. But
I always believe that the best policy with reviews is not to read them.
Well, I would agree with you, but these aren't reviews. Anyway, it's been a momentous week for James Comey, possibly for John Bolton, and for peace in the Middle East.
And Letitia James, which I don't think we've mentioned that. We haven't covered that incredibly egregious move. Another incredibly egregious move on the part of Donald Trump and his, what would we call her, handmaiden Lindsay Halligan. And I think we should spend a little more time on the fact that she has become this complete non-entity.
Well, she was a complete non-entity, but now she's become an entity, hasn't she? Because she's
firing
off. This is her moment.
She's pivotal to the destruction of democracy in America. I'm sure her high school classmates would not have voted her pivotal to the destruction of democracy in America.
Right, but they would have, I think, said best hair.
Well, there's a lot of competition within the Trump circle on best hair.
I think she would have had the best hair at high school, and she has a lot of competition. Melania's hair looks splendid today at her unexpected press conference. As we know, Margot Martin, fabulous hair. Natalie Harp, fabulous hair. Hope Hicks, who probably had the best hair of all, is not around any longer. But it is and then, of course, Donald Trump's hair. Donald Trump's own hair.
Always begins and ends with Donald Trump's hair.
Indeed it does. Michael, onwards.
Until Tuesday.
Onwards. Until Tuesday, don't forget to be Beast. And a shout out to our top tier Be Beast members, Karen White, Heidi Riley, Connie Rutherford, Sharon Shipley, Andrea Hodel, and Free DC. And thank you to our production team, Devon Rogerino, Anna von Urson, and our editor, Jessie Millward.